All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Off Axis podcast. I'm here with Melissa James and Brandon Birchak. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good.
Not too bad.
So these guys are circus performers. You guys have performed like everywhere and been in all kinds of big shows and even created your own kinds of act, correct?
Yeah.
So how you guys doing in this like crazy time? What have you guys been up to?
We've gotten by. We were fortunate and unfortunate that we bought a house at the beginning of the year. So yeah, exactly. That's where all our money went, and then to COVID. But it's been great because we've had a really nice studio space to be able to train, and we've got a gym at home. We've got a lot of space, so I think that was a savior as opposed to being in a very cramped space and having no means to train. So
yeah. So, but your guys' house came like pretty well done already, right? It wasn't like a fixer-upper at all.
No, it was pretty much what we wanted as soon as we moved in. Yeah.
Oh, so that's nice.
Yeah, it's good. It has a really big studio space. We're getting some trussing in and stuff right now, and finishing one of the walls with mirror and stuff, so that we've got a dance studio and got some aerial rigging points.
Yeah, you guys already have an aerial rig in there, right?
No, we just have a bunch of trussing. We're getting the rest of it installed.
yeah, just need a few corner pieces and then we'll be good to go. But it's been a great space to choreograph, and I have an X-pole stage with a lollipop and a pole. So
that's what was in there last time I saw.
Yeah.
The lollipops. Those things they look like they're gonna fall down. Every time I see someone perform, I'm like, oh, it's gonna fall.
Yeah, if you get too much spin on them, they get a bit of a wobble to them. So
Has one ever fallen?
not that I know of, mine hasn't. But once you get used to it, like anything, and you know exactly where you can put your weight, how much spin you can give, and what moves you can do acrobatically to make sure that your weight is consistently centered.
Yeah, and the sway poles, they're kind of on the same like base system. Have either of you guys ever been on one of those before?
Yeah, we had some sway poles for a show that I did in Andorra last year. It was a really brief project with Cirque, and we had some sway poles in there. Those are interesting. Yeah, giant fiberglass poles.
Yeah.
They bend down like 90 degrees.
Yeah,
they're a lot of fun. I worked on them when I was freelancing in Dubai, and in a nightclub environment, you can literally bend down and just like give someone a knuckle tap.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I put one together one time for a show, and I was like, there's no way this is going to work. And like somehow like no one got hurt. It was all
amazing.
Good.
And as an artist, they're not taxing on the body. It's like just a bit of core work.
Yeah,
so
it's like riding a swing or something.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's so much fun.
And they look really cool too.
Yeah, they're great. And you just need enough height for them, but you don't need like any rigging points. So it's a nice little apparatus for that situation.
Yeah. All right, enough about sway poles. So what's your guys' background? We'll start with you.
I'm from Australia, obviously, Sydney. I trained there in musical theatre, actually. So I spent most of my career doing shows like Hairspray and Mamma Mia and Chicago, which was my dream show. But I actually was in Vegas, I think 2009, and saw Le Rêve, and that planted the seed for circus for me. And I became really into Dragone's work, and fortunately enough, I worked for him years later in Dubai in the show Lapel. But so now, I'm definitely more of an aerialist and working more within the circus regime, but with a musical theatre background. So I try and incorporate it all.
Nice, yeah. Rest in peace, Le Rêve. That was such a good show.
Oh man, what a heartbreaker! Came out of nowhere.
Do you guys think that it's really going to be fully closed?
Well, I just keep thinking that beautiful theatre is just sitting there. Like, surely they're going to use it for something, but then they already had such a great show in there. So, who knows?
There's a lot of interesting politicking behind the scenes too, right? And that show's been riddled with issues for a number of years. And so, I mean, I don't know. There are certainly people that know more about it than I do. Yeah. But a lot of Dragon projects are a little bit chaotic behind the scenes, so who knows, man? Yeah.
So, and you're an O. How long has O been there?
O's been running for 21 years. I've only been there for a year. Before
21 years.
Yeah.
Damn. That was new.
And some people have been there for 21 years. Like,
there are a handful of original cast still. Before that, I did some smaller projects with Cirque. I did their traveling stuff. I did a show in Andorra that was really great right before I came to O. And then before that, I was with Dragon for about 5 years. Helped create a show called The Han Show That was in Wuhan, China. And, yeah, of all places. It was a really interesting experience. I was doing a solo juggling act and hand-to-hand and Russian swing. And then we had a really big high dive, too. The high dive was about 28 meters. So pretty much same height as, a Red Bull comp. But the difference is in the Red Bull comps, you jump a couple times a day, right?
Yeah.
But, not so many stops on the tour every year. But with the Hansho, it was like the same height, but twice a night, so it was crazy.
Yeah.
And it was really taxing, and we had tons of injuries. And then when people are injured, the workload was exacerbated on the other people. Yep. So it was chaotic. Yeah.
Yeah. So your background is diving. Did you do diving in like high school?
Yeah, I dove for the U.S. I was a Division II national champion in college.
Damn, nice.
And and then after 2007, I pretty much retired from diving, joined the circus. But I was moonlighting. I was moonlighting as a circus performer before that as well. Probably ever since 2003, in the summer months away from competition, I would take like 3 months off, and I'd go do a project somewhere for somebody, and then I'd return to competition later that fall. So diving was like really, it was a vehicle for me to join the circus.
Nice.
So yeah, definitely like diving and circus were equal parts of my trajectory. I wasn't like circus wasn't like a fallback. I always had that kind of planned.
Were you already juggling when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could juggle. I wasn't like a great juggler. I lived with a really great juggler named Bo Fries, who passed away some years ago, actually during our contract together. Bo is a circus legend, but he passed away from a head injury, actually on a contract with a company called Circulation. I actually helped him set them up together, that contract, because I originally had a tryout with them, and then they were looking for a tramp wall juggler, and I was like, you know what, I'm not free actually, but I know the perfect guy. Bo ended up doing about 2 years with them before his head injury. So I knew Bo from one of my first contracts. I was probably like, I had to have been like 19 or something.
Yeah.
And he was a really, really great juggler. I was totally blown away. I had never seen juggling like that before. So I started devoting like huge amounts of time to that. I think in my undergrad, I was doing like 6 to 8 hours a day of like pretty focused training.
Yeah.
And then I did different smaller shows. And then eventually I had an act that was decent. And then I got a little bit burned out with the industry. I was working for Dolly Parton at the time. I quit because I was frustrated. A lot of crazy things were happening in my life at the time. So I bought like a one-way ticket to Paris. And so then I worked as a street performer for 2 years in Paris as a juggler. And then
that's interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty good times. Yeah, I loved it. And then after 2 years, it was time for something else. So then Franco offered me a job with a really big role in an upcoming creation. So I jumped on that, and then a little over 4 years in Wuhan. Then got tired of that as well. So decided to give that one up, and then landed in my lap. So took a few months off. Went to Spain, did a short contract, and then went to now we're here, and then the pandemic.
Jesus. Okay, so back to Wuhan, because that's a hot topic. Did you notice anything suspicious going on over there when you were there?
Yeah, I did. It was called China. China was extremely suspicious.
As they are.
China's crazy. People have no idea what the reality of living in a really, really, really state-controlled media format looks like. But the propaganda is impressive. It is all powerful, and there's very little information that gets out to the average citizen that has not gone through a really strict filter. So it's pretty wild. Everything is really highly groomed, and of course everything everywhere in China is filmed, right? And
that's crazy.
Yeah, the amount of like face recognition software and just the backdoor encryption and software and stuff in your phones is pretty mind-boggling. I had political conversations a couple times out at a bar, and then my phone wouldn't work for a couple days. What? And that happened on several occasions where I'd have a conversation about like U.S.-Chinese relations and politics and stuff like that with another expat, and then my phone wouldn't work for a couple days, and then it would go away. But then if that happened again, if I had some sort of long tirade kind of conversation about Chinese politics or American politics, stuff like that, my phone wouldn't work for a few days. And that was pretty weird, and that kind of freaks you out a little bit. So, yeah. When I left Wuhan right before the pandemic hit, essentially, which was just like a small miracle. So
we figured out how the coronavirus came to America.
So obviously,
we just figured it out.
Obviously, I'm patient number one. So when I left, though, I had a bunch of friends that were still there, and they weren't allowed to leave their apartments. There are these big sound systems and speakers set up in the middle of the street. What? And some people had like bars welded over their apartment doors so that they couldn't leave. So then a government official would come by every week with like a 10-kilogram bag of rice and some other basics and stuff like that. And they would make sure that 1, you hadn't left, 2, you were alive, and 3, if you needed anything. So that's pretty intense. I mean, if one of these places went up in a blaze, obviously no one's getting out alive, right? Because the doors are essentially, for all intents and purposes, welded shut. So it was pretty wacky. That didn't happen to any of the expats that I knew when I left, but certainly some other people that weren't in the entertainment industry or lived in a worse part of town or something like that, maybe if they were teachers or something like that, that was not impossible. I definitely saw and heard of that from a couple different people, although it was no one that I knew really intimately that had that happen to them at their place. But it was a reality there in Wuhan. Jeez. They were on a really, really intense lockdown. It was really wild.
Whew. China is crazy.
China's really crazy. China's really crazy. There are a couple things that I really admire about China, but in general, I can't imagine myself living there permanently. I had no intention of living there as long as I did.
Yeah.
I was really tied to the show. I really loved the project. The money was fantastic. But yeah, so somehow I ended up staying for quite a while.
So is Wuhan, like, what kind of city is that, if you could compare it to somewhere in United States?
Okay, so Wuhan is a quaint little village of 15 million people. So
that's a lot of people. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's an enormous number of people. It's crazy the number of people that live there when you consider that nobody's ever heard of Wuhan, right? Before the epidemic, nobody had ever heard of Wuhan.
No,
it's one of the bigger cities in the world, right? If you go on Wikipedia and you look up cities in China by population, there's like an enormous list that are over 10 million. It's crazy. It's shocking how many big cities there are like that. So this isn't even considered, in population, it's considered like a first tier city, but essentially it just popped up out of nowhere. It used to be, I believe they had the largest steel manufacturer or like smelting, like the 2 biggest steel producers or something were there.
Yeah.
So essentially it was like this manufacturing town. And then the second richest guy in China, Wang Jingling, I think that's his name. He owns the Wanda Group, which is real estate and a couple other things. Well, that was kind of his home base. So he owned everything in Wuhan, like every block, every apartment, everything you can possibly imagine. And the city was, was coming to 10 million and more people. So the population is just enormous. And there's this one guy who owns virtually everything in a city of that size. So it's really enormous. So a really interesting thing about the Han show is that the Han show was a $400 million budget. Okay. Ooh. So that trumps everything that's ever been done anywhere by
far,
by huge margins,
like 4 times.
Yeah. I mean, Ka was really expensive. I don't remember exactly what the number was on Ka.
It was like $30 million for Ka.
Oh, I think it was a lot more than that.
Was it?
Yeah.
I just remember a $20 million set.
Okay. Well, anyway, Ka was really expensive, but it's like drop in the bucket compared to the Han Show.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, and it was really different.
What else did you guys have?
What do you mean?
Like, what was, like, where'd the extra $300 million?
Yeah, where'd the money go? The inside of that theater was shocking. It was,
really?
It's like the 8th wonder of the world. It's incredible.
Holy shit.
The stage is probably 10 times the size of the stage at O, and it's all water. It's several giant actuating lifts that go up and down. They turn this entire stage into water or not, but it's so enormous. And then the catwalk is at 52 meters. And the potential for aerial rigging and acrobatic design is just out of control. And it's this giant standalone theater custom built for this purpose. But the reason it's interesting is because to operate a show that's $400 million, you could never make money back on ticket sales, right? I mean, you'd have to run at full capacity for like 100 years. It could never happen.
It's kind of like charity. There's no way.
No, here's why it's genius, though. And so this is So Wan Jingling, the owner of the Wanda Group, he owns everything in Wuhan, right?
Yep.
So he owns absolutely everything in Wuhan. Every bit of commerce that goes in and out of that city, he's got his hand in. So his big project with the Han Show was he wanted to turn Wuhan into the next Beijing or Shanghai and make it much more westernized, much more cosmopolitan, make it a tourist destination for all over Asia and stuff like that. So if that happened, because he owns everything, if the cost of living rises like 3 or 5%, he'll make billions of dollars on the back end. So to kickstart this project, he made this really big street called the Han Street, and it's like all these luxury shops and retail with an amusement park on one end and then the Han Show on the other end. So he spent well over $1 billion between that whole project, the $400 million for the Han Show included. So in doing that, he was operating at an enormous loss on that one aspect.
Yeah.
But sure enough, the price of real estate from when I got there to when I left went up over 100%. Ooh. So given the fact that this guy owns the entire city, he definitely made his billions of dollars back. It's a super wild, aggressive business plan, and it paid off for him. But it's almost like Dr. Evil style. It's like the craziest thing you've ever heard. Who's got $400 million to make this kind of gambit? But for us, for artists, though, it was incredible because you got to be part of a creation where, price was not an issue. Sky was the limit. I mean...
Yeah, they weren't cutting costs around there.
Yeah, it was wild. And the stuff that we came up with and the stuff that we did was pretty out of control.
Damn, he picked the wrong city, though.
Well, he definitely picked the wrong city. But the problem is, it couldn't be economically viable anywhere else except for somewhere that you already happen to own the infrastructure of a city greater than 10 million population, and that you're going to reap that benefit on the back end, And of course, also, if it cost $400 million to make in the middle of China with a whole bunch of illegal labor and absolute just horrible, should be illegal wages for a lot of that construction and stuff. For that to happen, I mean, if that happened anywhere else, if that were in Canada or Europe or the US, the budget would have had to have been like over $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
So it couldn't have happened anywhere else. Although it's a bummer that it happened there because it was Wuhan, and I wasn't in love with Wuhan. It was the most polluted, dirty place I've ever lived in my entire life. But I had a great time there. It just had a lot of downfall.
Dude, that's crazy.
It was pretty wild.
So it was pretty dirty, though?
It was shocking.
So do you think the coronavirus was man-made, or do you think it happened in a wet market?
Well, I think that it's pretty easy to say that it came from a wet market, because the science tells us that you can look at you can break down the nature of the virus, and you can almost like carbon date it to exactly what it came from, how it was formulated, and there are some different ways to be able to assess whether or not it's man-made or not, or if it were an organic one-off situation. However, that being said, so I don't think it was man-made. However, I do think that when they had it in the lab, when they were assessing it and looking at it, obviously they could have certainly done an incredibly poor job of containing it.
Yeah.
Because there is a huge lack of protocol in China in terms of safety and health and public safety.
Yeah, I bet.
So I don't think that I think it would be a little bit conspiratorial to think that it were man-made, especially with all the evidence out there that says otherwise.
Yeah.
However, it's not a far bridge to think that the virus itself took off like wildfire for a handful of reasons that could have been mitigated really early. But what do I know? I mean,
no one will ever know.
Yeah.
Except for maybe that Han guy. He might have an idea.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, they could just check the cameras.
Yeah, for sure.
He's got security footage of everything.
Yeah.
Melissa, did you ever go to Wuhan?
I didn't go to Wuhan, but I did do a contract for it was a new creation of a circus aerial dance show in Shenzhen, China. So on the southwest coast, about 20 minutes from the Hong Kong border. So I had about 5 months there, and that was enough China for me, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me was definitely the hygiene standards. It's very different from westernized cultures. We were working with a local Chinese company, so their workplace safety conditions were very different from our standards. And the food I just couldn't do. And I eat mostly vegan now, and it was almost impossible to eat healthy there, at least where we were, and like with our routine and our schedule, I found the food really difficult.
A lot of chicken feet.
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of
chicken feet?
Oh, it's a delicacy there.
Chicken feet is like that's as common as, I don't know, I don't even think we have anything that's like that.
What? Chicken feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my chickens right now, like, oh, they're poor feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Every meal in our staff cafeteria, there was a huge vat of chicken feet. I wasn't in love with the food.
Weird.
I wasn't in love with the food. I mean, there were a lot of things that I really liked there, even in cuisine.
It's quite a big like Chinese tradition as well. Like our company would take us out for company meals every now and then, and they would just like order, like it's like banquet. They just keep bringing food. So, I love trying new cultures. So I always be like, not wanting to offend, like try everything that comes out. And then I find out later that I've had like geese intestine and all these crazy things. And I'm like, that's why I feel a little bit ill today. But yeah, the culture, there's some really beautiful aspects of the Chinese culture, which I found so fascinating because it was the most contrasting culture I had ever experienced in all my years of travel. Eastern culture, because there's so many differences to what we experienced, but there was some really beautiful things as well. Just long term, it definitely wasn't for me, but then I've spent like several years in Dubai, so in the last couple of years, and that's also a very different, very interesting place to live too.
Okay, another question. Do you guys think that it's possible, like, how we have like the American dream, where you can like grow a business and fucking be a millionaire?
Yeah, of course.
Is that possible in China, or is there like, if you're born into a certain family, you're stuck there?
Okay, so I think there's different layers to that. Right now, China's going through a huge economic boom, right? I mean, in the last 30 years, China has raised more people out of poverty than any other country in the history of civilization, and it's not even close. So you're talking about hundreds of millions of Chinese going from absolute poverty to like, a nice apartment and cars and whatever electronics they feel the need to buy and all of that, right? So to a certain degree, they are experiencing what America went through in kind of our rise to economic power. At the same time, though, there are certainly people who have no opportunity in China. So if you're a laborer, you're still working all day, every day. You have no education. Your kids aren't going to have education. They're going to work for almost nothing with very dangerous conditions, and that's pervasive throughout China. So there definitely is a multifaceted conversation, but in general, I think that there is a lot of opportunity for social mobility in China, way more than there used to be. However, there is a large contingency of people who have very little opportunity as well.
Wow. China is a crazy place.
China is definitely a wild ride. I had a really great time there. As much as I wasn't in love with the food and the pollution really got to me, I had a great time.
And in saying that, there's actually a really big market there for entertainment. There's a lot of shows being produced over there, you know, hiring around the world. So it's actually a really great hub for us as artists because, I mean, before COVID, there was a lot of projects that I knew of that were coming up in Asia. So, and hopefully they will still, you know, exist.
Yeah, are they rolling again yet? Like, are they?
So the Han show is starting back up in a couple of weeks.
In a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Imagine that. So that's a good litmus test for us too, right? So if you think about it, let's see, when did...
they were like 3 or 4 months before us,
so
right?
about 3 months. Let's see.
It was end of December that they...
About 3 months. They were about 3 months earlier in terms of their shutdown, in terms of how it all spread, also the changes in the economy and shows stopping and stuff like that. So Han show is restarting like right now. So perhaps we're 3 months away. I don't know.
Ooh, hopefully.
Yeah.
I feel like it goes back to normal after the election.
Yeah, you think so?
I think just for timing reasons, and I think there's part political agenda behind it.
Yeah.
It feels that way.
Definitely does. Seems like we're trying to cause as much chaos as we possibly can before the election.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
We're definitely going through a really crazy period for America, and hopefully we come out of it better because we're not showing our best colors right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's just very weird having the choice of two very old guys who are losing their minds.
Yeah, it is going to be the racist dementia Olympics when those two debate. It is going to be remarkable.
Are they going to debate? Like, who knows?
It's crazy.
I feel like they're trying to keep Biden at it. I can only like, he seemed okay at the DNC. Like,
yeah, he did seem okay.
The speech, but everything before that's been like, what's he gonna say now?
Both of them. The stuff that comes out of both their mouths. Yeah, the stuff that comes out of both their mouths is crazy.
Yeah. I feel like Trump is like, he just freelances everything. Like, just there's no like nothing that he's looking at. He doesn't have anything written down. He's just like, I'm just gonna ramble for a couple hours. And that he just says some random shit that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's insanity.
Yeah, I've been in and out of America a lot for work and whatnot, but like moving here this year and going through an immigration process in this country, I feel like it's almost like watching a reality TV show.
I feel like that's what America's goal always was just become a reality TV show.
Yeah, well,
I think they succeeded.
We got one step closer by hiring a reality television host to be our president.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he's kind of turning it into.
Yeah.
Just a big reality show.
The rest of the world is watching America like we watched Tiger King.
Yeah.
That's what's happening right now. This is a super entertaining dumpster fire, and it is scary.
Yeah, whenever I speak to anyone from Australia, they're like, so how are things there? It looks interesting.
Our content is filled with America now.
Yeah, I'm just training and, you know, living my own life right now and doing the best I can.
We're just trying to put out as much viral content as possible. And
yeah,
I guess
I'm just trying to keep art alive. So that's my focus.
Yeah. So you guys have a new act coming up, or a new act that you guys have been working on, right?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
That's right. We just came from training before we got here.
So tell us about it.
Go on, Mel.
Don't blow any secrets, though.
Yeah. We won't. Well, actually, Brandon told me about it when we were both on vacation in Nepal a few years ago, that he had this dream to build a tank and have a tank act where he could just hold his breath, because he'd been training his free diving to be a breath holder, and I don't know what capacity you were at then, like around four minutes or so. So we just started brainstorming on the top of this mountain in Nepal. I'm like, oh, you know, if you had a dancer, or aerialist, a contortionist, and you could do this and do that. And we just went backwards and forwards for a while. And Brendan was like, Mel, you have to do this with me. So yeah, that's why I came to Vegas at the end of last year, and then ended up moving here for another contract. But it's great because we've had plenty of time to work on the act. But yeah, it's going to be based around this crazy guy's ability to hold his breath for a very long period of time. And then I will be doing dance and aerial, and we have something really, really beautiful that we are working on that is just going to be a really amazing collaboration of athleticism and art and beauty and love, and we're just really excited about it.
And Brandon holding his breath throughout the whole act, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's not the whole act, is it?
I mean, I'll be holding my breath virtually the whole act, yeah. So my upper range for that is going to be around like 8.5 minutes for a breath hold. So it's a lot of training. I hired one of a world champion in freediving. His name's Adam Stern, as a consultant to kind of coach me for the last couple of years. So he's been in charge of my breath hold program. And then I'm hooked up with UNLV, and they've been doing blood work on me and some interesting testing to make sure that what I'm doing is sustainable. So making sure that my endocrine system and my nervous system are not going haywire from super prolonged breath holds on a really regular basis, and making sure that I'm not like incurring any brain damage or anything like that. Yeah. So there's
that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, I already have some memory issues. I banged my head once really hard, so but this is going to be good, and we're doing it in a safe and sustainable way. Today, my workout was I hold my breath. This is like the really simplified version, but 3 minutes of breathing, and then hold my breath for a little over 3 minutes. Like actively while swimming, and then 3 minutes to recover, and then 3 minutes of breath holding again while swimming. And then I did that 8 times in a row.
So you have to swim.
Yeah.
While holding your breath.
Yeah. So the reason for that is because I'm also coaching my body into using lactic acid initially, because that's going to help reduce my dependency on oxygen as far as fueling my muscles is concerned. There's a lot that goes into it, but also any activity is going to really rapidly increase my CO2 levels, which is something that I have to work toward every day, is having a higher CO2 tolerance. Yeah. So when you hold your breath and you feel the urge to breathe, that's not because you're running out of oxygen. You feel the urge to breathe because your CO2 is building up. So your body actually wants to expel the CO2. It has nothing to do with your lack of oxygen. Interesting. That's a huge misconception. Okay. When you black out from a lack of O2, there's no warning. There's nothing that happens in your body before you black out from a lack of oxygen that's going to give you any kind of indication that you're about to black out. When you hold your breath for a really long time and you start to get fuzzy and tingly, and you really, really feel like you need to breathe and your heart rate's going way up, that's all to do with CO2. So one of the reasons that I'm swimming while I'm holding my breath is because that's hugely increasing my upper limit of CO2 tolerance. So what that means for me is when I'm holding my breath for a static apnea maximum later, my urge to breathe happens much, much later because I am very tolerant to high levels of CO2. And so because of that higher threshold, because of the active breath holding swims, I'm able to hold longer because of the CO2 threshold. Yeah. And then as far as my oxygen is concerned, I'm doing lots of other things for that too. I'm doing like a little bit of lifting in the mornings, although I've been trying to lose weight as fast as possible. I actually just weighed myself today, and I am 148, and that's about 10 pounds lighter than when I was doing more hand-to-hand work and stuff like that in the circus.
And why do you want to be lighter?
Because I'm going to use less fuel, less oxygen.
Oh, okay.
So everything less, right? Less body fat, less muscle, less everything. So where was I going?
I don't know. You weighed 148.
Oh yeah. So.
How much were you before?
Well, it depends on my job, right? When I'm like honestly, right? So when I was a juggler, when I was like a pure juggler, I'm in the low 150s. And then when I was doing a lot of hand-to-hand stuff, I used to do a hand-to-hand act for Dragon, and I was upper 150s, 157, 8. So I think my heaviest was 162. And then if I was like 155, I was really shredded at 155. Now I'm 148, so I'm trying to drop that a little bit. Just shrink the size of the engine so that requires less fuel.
Yeah, for sure. I think longevity-wise, that's a good idea also.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So, as far as the oxygen is concerned, I'm doing other things. So the CO2, I'm doing a lot of that. It's called Hypercapnic Training. Which our buddy Michael Savelin refers to as taking a knee at the bottom of the pool, as a reference to Colin Kaepernick, but which I thought was an amazing joke. But so the hypercapnic training is to increase my CO2 threshold, and then for the oxygen side, I'm training really intensive cardio, about an hour a day, either doing static cardio for an hour, or on alternating days, I'm doing high intensity interval training for an hour with an altitude mask on, and then at night, I'm sleeping in an altitude tent that simulates a little higher than Everest Base Camp.
By yourself?
Yeah. So
you don't sleep in there either?
I've not been invited yet.
Stay out of my altitude tank.
So we actually just got the altitude tent, but it simulates up to, I don't remember the upper limit, but my intention of the upper limit is about 5,500 meters. I don't feel the need to go any higher than that, but that's
pretty high.
That's extraordinarily high. Yeah. But so this idea of sleep high, train low is what a lot of cyclists do as well. And so it increases the size of your red blood cells, the size of your hemoglobin, everything. It's just geared toward increasing your O2 saturation levels. So that's what I'm doing for the O2 side.
I'm just imagining like a tent next to your master bed.
That's really accurate.
You just sleep. Yeah. You're like camping every day.
We basically have a whole room dedicated to breath holding now. So
yeah, we have a whole room dedicated to breath holding now. It's one of the benefits
of having a nice big house to ourselves. So
yeah, so we've got all sorts of machines in there to produce CO2, O2, altitude. We've got the tent. We've got all sorts of tanks and everything you can possibly imagine.
I think the really interesting part of creating this act as well is there is so much unknown, and there's not been as much study as I know that I wish there was on breath holding and the long-term effects. And we've even discussed when we start doing shows, I'm like, will you do some practice breathe ups before the act? And so when we're booked with a company, we have to, lay out our guidelines as to this is how much time he needs before, how much time he needs after, what we need during the day, what we need accessible to us for his training, how much he can train outside of this. So it's been one benefit of COVID and the lockdown making us slow down is we've had more time to go about this as safely as we possibly can and record absolutely everything. And he's got some brilliant technology that monitors his heart rates on his breath holds. And
we can monitor everything, absolutely everything. I can check my O2 saturation while I'm doing a breath hold. We've got a device called a pulse oximeter. The first one that I ordered online is you pretty much just put a pulse oximeter on your hand, and there's an infrared light that goes through it, and so your red blood cells or lack of red blood cells are going to give back a different wavelength of light. So that's how the device measures your O2 saturation. So the first one that I ordered didn't work. And so the reason for that is because when you hold your breath, after maybe 4 or 5 minutes, there's something called blood shunting that happens. So all of the blood leaves your extremities to protect your vital organs and your brain. So the pulse oximeter was reading me at 30% O2 saturation, which would be dead, really dead.
Really?
Yeah. So
3 days dead.
3 days dead. So less than 60% O2 saturation would be unconscious. And you can dip under that for a very short amount of time, but essentially 60% would be definitely unconscious. So this pulse oximeter is reading 30%, and I'm like, obviously it's the blood shunting, you know, so I was irritated, and I sent it back, but I got a new one recently that's for veterinary work. So you can clip it onto a dog's tongue, right? So obviously that works much more successfully with the blood shunting because all the blood in my body is rushing toward my vital organs, my liver, my heart, and my brain.
Yeah.
So by putting the clip on my tongue or even the back of my ear, I'm getting a pretty accurate readout. It's not perfectly accurate, but it's accurate enough to stay really safe.
Yeah.
So if my trainings are bringing my O2 saturation level down to about like 67, 68%, I know that I probably shouldn't be pushing it really much further than that because I might be risking brain damage or like a blackout. So it's just a really good way to monitor. And then of course, you know, smart tech these days, you know, I've got resting heart rate and pretty much every biometric you can think of, and then also doing some studies with UNLV and them working really closely with me on this project is going to reap a lot of benefits because everything can be tracked. So my iron levels, my O2, my hemoglobin, everything you can possibly imagine. So I think we're going about it in a really safe way, which is good because like Mel was saying, there's very little research available for this previously. So it's a really undocumented field at this point. So hopefully we can offer something as well, you know, and also offer something back to like the free diving community and different things like that. Yeah.
Interesting. So what do you guys do for like outside fitness stuff? Do you like lift weights and like how's your diet? You said you do mostly vegan now. Is there any sort of like
I
supplements
say mostly vegan
take?
because I don't want to offend like real 100% gung-ho vegans.
They get really mad if you're not 100%
right?
vegan.
If I have like seafood
I was vegan
once
for
a
a
month.
while. And
Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah, almost a year.
Yeah, I
It
didn't
was
know
like
that.
10 months or something.
How did you feel?
Well,
Do you remember?
yeah, I totally remember. I would say I felt very drained.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, and I was totally lying to myself and saying like, "Oh, I feel great." Like,
Yeah.
I didn't feel good. No, my body started falling apart. Like, I don't think that it's a bad diet, but I think it takes more than a year for your body to become accustomed to that as like its source of energy, you know? So I just don't think that I was on it for long enough because Mason seems to be thriving and he's been vegan for like 5 years.
Okay.
But for me, my body was shutting down. Like I was performing summer shows like I always do, and that was the only summer where I had real problems with like overuse injuries and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you have to just check in with the doctor and do some blood tests and see if there's deficiencies. Like, because to me it was the opposite. I'd cut out dairy like about 8 years ago because I got really bad acne and dairy's super bad for your skin. So that wasn't an issue, and I was only just munching on like just chicken breast because I was like, well, I just need the protein and it's lean and I'm gonna keep my weight down. But yeah, I got home from a contract and I'd only just turned 30, but I really felt like a lot of tendonitis like in my shoulders and my elbows and all my joints, and I was like refusing to accept it was like a change in age. So yeah, I'm like, well, I'll just cut out meat and everything because I was just doing a lot more research on exercise, nutrition, because I've worked, my whole career as a fitness instructor and personal trainer in between contracts, and everything was leading towards the same kind of research. So I'm like, well, I've got nothing to lose. And it was right before I went to work on Lapel with Franco Dragone as a choreographer. So I knew I physically wasn't going to be exerting myself as much. So it was just a good chance to give my body a rest and work on diet, and literally everything went away. And I felt so much better and nothing in my body hurt anymore. So I've just kept it up and it's really worked for me. But again, I'm not super fussy. Like if someone's got a bit of cheese in it every now and then, I'm not going to starve myself.
And how long have you been doing that for?
Since like the beginning of 2017. So yeah, just over like 3 years. But to me, I've always loved vegetarian food. So like maybe just my body, like it naturally just, works off like a plant-based diet. But for sure, I really notice it now. If I put something in my body that's an animal product, I can feel it. My body's like, meh, not so great. But
yeah, I noticed like a huge difference in my moods when I was like vegan. I was like all like happy and like spiritual. Now I'm like closer to like a carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Like I eat vegetables and stuff, but
Are you on that Joe Rogan elk meat diet?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Bison though, because I can't get elk.
And how's your mood? Do you get cranky now? Or?
No, I'm just definitely way more aggressive, and I feel like I have like twice as much testosterone running through my body as I did a few years ago.
It has a stigma because I'm also a big yogi. Like I do yoga like nearly every morning. Because again, it's just something I started doing, and my body was so much better for it. You know, it's like because it's a lot about breath as well. So to me, it's just about providing oxygen to your muscles and your joints in places where you need it, and it teaches you how to properly stress, how to clear your mind, which is super hard, I think, not just for me but for most artists, because we're like like up in our head, you know.
Definitely.
so I'm definitely not a atypical yogi vegan because I love wine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, you know, it's about balance as well, but yeah, yoga is a big thing for me. But now that, you know, all the circus training spaces are open, like I'm there like at least 6 times a week, training my aerial, which is mostly hoop. That's what I foresee definitely is the first version of our act, because that's kind of my main love as an aerialist, is aerial hoop, or sisto, or lira. There's many names. Yeah. But yeah, pole is like my new love. I'm like really, really gung ho on pole right now.
She's amazing on pole.
Really?
Yeah, it's shocking. It's incredible.
It's still new, but it's coming along really, really well. And but yeah, I just our act is really, it's going to be a piece of theater. We both have a bit of like acting backgrounds as well, and you know, when you're asking about like the swimming underwater as well, it's really going to help create so he can do movement underwater, you know, and be making action. So it's like almost like a scene, like you're going to watch a man underwater performing, you know, what might be an everyday activity, but he's underwater. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of storyline, and there's going to be a connection between us, and everything's going to be, you know, intertwined with the music and the lighting and the costuming, and, you know, it's going to be a big undertaking, but it's going to be a piece of theater. That's my main goal anyway, from my background, and like, but also working in circus, because sometimes, you know, you see a lot of incredible feats of athleticism and flexibility and strength, which of course is always going to be impressive. But I think what really connects people is the emotional commitment that you can grow with characters on stage. You know, that's why if you go to a musical and people are just crying and laughing and they're on their feet at the end, it's because they've gone on that emotional journey with those characters through that story. So, and it's a great bigger challenge within an act, because we might have only like 5-6 minutes, you know, to connect with the audience and tell them our story and have them on this journey with us by the end, that they've felt something that will make them want to jump out of their seats or cry or laugh, or, you know, turn around and tell their neighbor and be like, you've got to go see this. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's, you know, awesome.
Because it's crazy what he's doing, and hopefully what I'm doing as well, you know, just to watch. But, you know, you can take it to a much deeper level if you work out what people want to see and what they want to feel, like why people come to theater. You know, it's to step outside your everyday life and be taken away from that and taken on a different journey. So that's going to be a challenge, but the greatest, to me, that's what I'm excited for, is to get into the artistic nitty-gritty, because the logistics of creating this act have been it's been a journey, and it's
I bet.
It's been titanic,
and we're barely halfway, I would have to say. I think the hardest is yet to come, because we
I don't know, I disagree a little bit. I think that we're over the hump, but I do agree that we have a ton left technically,
because I'm still trying to work out how we're going to get this tank inside of our studio when it weighs like 600 pounds, and we have to take our window out to get it in, and then we have a stand and the cap that is built like the set that the tank goes in. So
wait, you're going to do it in your house?
Well, we've got a studio in our house, and that's where we're going to
we want to be able to train.
That's where we're going to do the R&D for the act, is in our house.
Yeah.
So we've got this tank coming. It should be arriving in 4 weeks. It's been a remarkable process getting this tank. So we'll give you a really, really short rundown on that.
Okay.
So maybe 8 months ago, we ordered a large tank that was, It's like 100 inches by 40 inches, okay? And it weighs about 550 pounds. It's a giant cylinder like your table, goes roughly up to your ceiling. And so that's the size of this giant tank.
The great thing is it was already manufactured and built. So we actually got to go and see it and measure it out. And like he could stand in front of it. We can be like, this is going to work. Yeah, we'll take it.
So that was with a company called Acrylic Tank Manufacturer. It's called ATM. And everybody that's ever worked for that company should be in prison. So the company sort of went bankrupt. Well,
at first they were moving shop. That's why when our tank was ready to be delivered to us, then we lost communication and found out a month later it's because they had to pack everything up to move. But
right, so that had to happen in like the middle of the night. Pretty much, it was a fire sale because what happened was they were getting kicked out because they hadn't paid at their old where their old lease was. So they had this enormous warehouse with hundreds of thousands of dollars of acrylic and stuff. They used to have this show on television called Tanked, and it was like this reality show. And it was these elaborate, exorbitant fish tanks that they would build for the rich and famous. Well, anyway, everything went belly up. They got into some huge domestic dispute. Both of them as the husband and wife that own the company. They've like filed lawsuits against each other. They had this messy divorce. They lost the company. Everything went belly up overnight. They're trying to move all of their infrastructure and everything that they've got into some new warehouses and stuff, but they don't have any money because they're bankrupt and they're idiots. So they put everything on all these tractor trailers, in like 48 hours notice before they're getting evicted from this other warehouse and all this space. So our tank ends up on one of these tractor trailers. Everything's gone. The owners of the company don't talk to anybody that they owe money to. And they have clients. So we had this tank, which was,
we paid for it in full. So
it was a decent chunk of change, but it wasn't anything like some of the other people that were owed money or product by this company. So there are people with $100,000 acrylic aquariums that were supposed to go into their houses that never got it. And so these people, we've had to serve them, okay, to try to get our money. So these people are just hiding out, okay? So it's a mess and a nightmare. Anyway, that was like 8 months ago or something.
9 months, yeah.
9 months. So that has been a huge disaster. We're still fighting that tooth and nail, but a couple of funny things did happen throughout that process. One, these people with the company, their stuff is all just scattered all over Las Vegas. We found a tractor trailer company that they had hired to store a lot of their inventory for a couple weeks while they were in between moves, right? So we did a little bit of like PI work, and we actually had who was your friend who was a PI, private investigator, who helped us out?
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, so we got some good intel on these guys, and we ended up finding this tractor trailer with a ton of acrylic stuff on it. Now, there's like dozens and dozens and dozens of these tractor trailers all over Vegas that have been sourced to a lot of different companies because they have tons of inventory. So anyway, we get in contact with one company, and we call them up and say, hey, I think you might have some of our product on it. Are you working with ATM, Acrylic Tank Manufacturer of Nevada or Las Vegas, whatever it is? And so immediately the secretary's like, hold on, I'm going to put you on with our GM. So the GM gets on the phone, and he's ready to like chew my head off because he thinks that I work for ATM, and he's ready to kill me because ATM owes them a bunch of money for holding their stuff. So then I'm like, no. I don't work for ATM. They owe me money too. So then obviously me and this trailer company owner, we bond over that. So he's like, all right, why don't you come in next week? Let's chat. Let's figure this out. So we go in to their company and we give them our whole story about what happened to us. And he tells us another, horrible story, just that they had rented like 8 trailers from them and then didn't pay them. So the owner of this trailer company pressed charges or filed a lawsuit against them, and then
he repossessed
all of their stuff. Okay.
So at this point, we just want the tank, at the end of the day. So we're just so hopeful that our tank is on one of his trailers.
Right. So we go looking through all of his trailers with him, and it's not there. And he's like, well, that sucks. But if you want, you can have any of the acrylic stuff here that you want. He's like, because I just need to get rid of it so I can get back to, being a shipping company, because that's what he is, right?
Yeah.
He's not in the aquarium business. So anyway, so we go to Home Depot. Well, we go to U-Haul, get a huge truck, go to Home Depot. Did this on 3 different occasions. Go to Home Depot, pick up a whole bunch of labor workers in the parking lot, right? $100 a day, going to help us move acrylic. So some of these sheets of acrylic are like 10 feet long, 6 feet wide, 2-3 inches thick. It costs like $12,000-$13,000 to manufacture. So there's just these tractor trailers just stacked with stuff like that. So we've got all sorts of funny little levers and systems and dollies and stuff trying to get this stuff into the back of U-Hauls. And then at our condo and our house, our garages are like slammed with acrylic stuff right now.
Oh my God.
So like tens and tens of thousands of dollars of acrylic inventory. So if you ever need bulletproof glass for anything,
I need it for all my windows.
You'd be doing yourself a huge disservice to not order it from us, because we'll give you a heck of a discount. So, but anyway, so then we got in touch with another company in California. They're making our tank. They're fabricating it right now. It's almost done. It's going to be shipped in like 3 weeks. That's going to an Illusion company that's going to put on a stand and a cap and stuff that's going to make it really nice. They're going to powder coat everything, because obviously we need some very interesting wheels and stuff underneath it. The whole thing is going to weigh about 5,000 pounds once it's filled with water.
Ooh,
so it's a pretty massive undertaking. So it's got to have some very interesting engineering below it and above it. So we've got a new tank coming. And then we've also been able to reduce the cost of our later fabrication and our tank with some of this extra acrylic that we were able to get off of these tractor trailers just sitting in the middle of the desert, So yeah, it's been ridiculous. It's been totally insane.
Yeah, hopefully in a year we'll look back and have a good laugh about just the nightmare we went through just to get a tank for this act.
Crazy how like little things that you think, oh, not a big deal, and then it turns into this like crazy ordeal that takes up months.
It's been so crazy.
We had no idea at the time, because I was over here from October to December. I left my show in Dubai in October, had a week at home, basically came here. We're going to try and bang out this act in about 3 months, because I had actually signed a contract for a new creation in Macau beginning in February, so I was taking a break for creative artistic creation, and ended up when I was here getting offered a contract here, and I'm like, well, that's much more ideal, so I took that. But I had to go home in January for a month to get the visa for this new show, and we had purchased the tank mid-December, so we're like, yeah, it's he's like, we just got to clean it up, put a bore valve in the bottom, and then you guys should have it within a few weeks. I'm like, that's great, as long as it's here by the time I go back to Australia, which was on January 7th. Like, it's hilarious that we were just like, oh, well, as long as it's not more than 2 weeks, and then here we are 9 months later. Just insane.
It's been crazy, but it's fine. It's not the end of the world. We've been able to train and do some R&D on the act itself.
We've also been incredibly fortunate living in Las Vegas, is because I feel like we've had the best riggers, the best companies, the best manufacturers, for me the best coaching as well, like where I'm learning pole and stuff, that we could possibly get in the world. And actually a few riggers that we'd both worked with on our Dragon projects separately, that we know also here in Vegas and have been helping us out on some technicalities, and they've just been really, really incredible resources. So we're so fortunate that so many people have really helped us kind of just nut this out, because it is, it's outside things that we've, dealt with and worked among,
it's a big
in our
undertaking.
careers. So so we're super grateful to at least be doing this in Vegas, where we have so much information and resource at our fingertips.
Yeah, we've got a really great team behind us on this. We've got a lot of great people from Dragon. We've got some amazing people on board. So everything from costume to music. Like Zoltan Krasinski is a really amazing composer who worked for Dragon for a long time, and just a really talented guy who's helping us with our music. Another musician, Jesse Amen, who's just an amazing cello player, is involved with the project. And then, Adam Stern, who's the world champion in free diving, and just every facet of this, we feel like we've got covered by somebody who's a really niche expert in their field. So I feel like from top to bottom, we've just got this amazing roster,
Yeah. The timing of coming together for this act, I think, couldn't have been better despite COVID. But, we've both had a similar trajectory within our careers, and we've checked a lot of boxes for individual dreams. And what we've wanted to do is a dancer, singer, actress, aerialist, and as a diver, acrobat, juggler, and then we're so ready for this, and that's why we're just investing all of our time and our hearts and our money into this project.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, but it's our dream, and we know it's going to pay off in every way that we could possibly have wanted to.
It's much more rewarding when it's your own thing too.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And it's not been done. What we're creating is really unique, and that's why it's so difficult, and there's so much unknown and so much that we are learning along the way, but it's it's going to be mind-blowing in the end.
It's going to be a really great product, I think. I think we're going to come out of this with something really, really fantastic, really unique, very new, and really genuine to ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Damn, that's cool. Well, let's wrap it up right there. We just crossed an hour. I want to thank you guys for coming on.
That went quick?
Yeah, for sure. It goes by quick. Where can everyone find you, Melissa?
On socials?
Social media.
My Instagram at Mel Renee, RENAY James. It's probably a good one for a lot of artistic content, that's for sure. Doing a lot of training right now. Hit me up there.
Sweet. And Brandon?
I think my Instagram is Birchak.
I think it is too.
Birchak. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. I need to be better about getting more content out there so that when we're up and running, it's not like I've just appeared out of nowhere, but seemingly that's the case.
I don't want to give away our ages, but we're definitely we started our careers before the world of social media, so it wasn't such a marketing tool, but I'm definitely learning now that this is I've booked jobs now just literally from social media. It's more about that than it is about demo reels now. So but it's also great because I also, I've learned and I've been inspired by a lot of people who post pretty amazing, crazy stuff because everyone's, very innovative these days. So it's really, I really encourage it for that, to get more art and more creativity and, outside of the box thinking out there.
Definitely. Cool. Well, thank you guys for coming on.
Thanks for having us on, man.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.